What's a sign someone's cheating that isn't obvious until you've been through it? Story 1. My ex-wife started talking all the time about a new coworker and was secretly texting him for months after we had just gotten married. I first ended up getting suspicious when I noticed her texting super late at night. I was having trouble sleeping, and I ended up rolling over to face her side of the bed, and she quickly put her phone away. I didn't think much of it until I noticed she had changed her iPhone settings to hide who was texting in her notifications. She then became overly protective of her phone, always had it with her, and if she had to set it down, it was always face down. Suddenly, she was coming home late from her restaurant job all the time, always an excuse about having to wait for customers to leave or some sort of side work. Then she is suddenly giving this coworker rides home. He didn't have a car. The final straw was her making some sort of wired travel kit for him to go back to Ohio to see his kids or something. Wasn't thrilled about that, and we ended up getting into a fight about whatever this friendship was between them. And then after our fight, this guy leaves his phone in the car, and it took every fiber of my being to not just dump it down a sewer drain. Ended up taking a detour with our kids in the car to drop off this phone when we had a 45-minute drive to do Christmas photos with Santa, and this house was another 20 minutes out of the way. I told her that this friendship either ends or our marriage isn't going to work. She weakly agreed to put an end to it, but the sneaky texting didn't seem to stop. About a week later, she ended up leaving her phone when she ran out to the store, and she got a bunch of notifications while she was out. I ended up deciding to unlock her phone to see what was going on, and sure enough, I found a massive amount of inappropriate texts and suggestive chats. The most recent night, she had dropped him off after her shift and then invited him to go to Walmart, with he had already gone inside to shower. I confronted her about it after she got back home, but told her I'm not talking about it now with the kids awake. After they went to bed, we had another fight, and the only reason I didn't leave that night was because of our kids. She apologized the next day and had me watch as she blocked his number. Then she spent the entire month of December love-bombing me and acting like she cared. But the damage was done, and our marriage never recovered. The only other oddity while she was fooling around with her AP was that she initiated intimacy more often and was much more intimate with me. As soon as the affair with her work friend ended, she went back to barely caring. Sorry for the long post. It's been over a year and a half now, and I have had a hard time processing everything since we separated. This is really the first time I've talked about it to anyone other than close family. T. Elder, watch for changes in communication, sudden secrecy regarding their phone, and weird changes in behavior. Answer, similar happened to me. Married my high school sweetheart. Life was good all through our 20s. No major fights or issues. Got a house. Put her through grad school, which landed her a great job. Had tons of friends. We were social. I was never controlling or suspicious. Why should I be? She ended up creating a hobby band with some colleagues. All medical professionals. All but her were late 50s. She was in her early 30s. They were mostly cool, and we would go on double dates with them or whatever. Then one of them dropped out of the band. It was weird. She talked to me about it and said his wife didn't like how he around her. I honestly chuckled because they were 28 years apart, and this guy was dorky. She even showed me the text messages the wife was upset about, and I honestly thought they were innocent. But he bails, and retrospectively, she cared too much about him bailing. Then COVID, obviously stressful on any medical professional, as it lifts my spouse of 13 years is acting off. I blame it on COVID and stress and try to be extra caring and supportive. I plan dates, trips, buy flowers, anything I can think of to support her. I get a custom new ring designed for our anniversary and surprise her. Instead, she just starts picking more fights, criticizing me for the weirdest things, and seems attached to her phone constantly. But I can't figure it out. She only goes to work, or for the most part. I push, and she blames it on me. Says I should go to therapy. I'm too controlling. I'm smothering her, etc. None of this makes sense, but I figure maybe I lack self-awareness. So I do for a year. It's great. I love therapy, but nothing emerges that explains anything that's going on. Even my therapist doesn't think so. Then one day I actually checked the phone records. She's been calling this guy for over an hour a day, this 60-year-old dorky married dude. Meanwhile, I've been blaming myself for our relationship issues and doing everything I can to improve. Over the next few months, we go to couples therapy because this shoot feels so insane I feel like it has to be able to be unraveled. But she lies to our therapist too. She keeps claiming she stopped talking to him, but he started passing notes, lies about seeing him, etc. I finally got enough info through snooping, asking others, Tesla video, etc. She had been fudge cheating for 2 fudge years. They were hooking up in the hospital parking lot. They would block each other's numbers so no calls would ever come through accidentally. Never texted. She had a fake calculator app on her phone that hid pictures. She claimed they had been together in another life and were twin flames. It was pure insanity, and it almost destroyed me. It felt like a movie reveal where everything was a lie and you have to rewatch it to make sense of it. Suddenly, I kept playing memories back and they made more sense. I got very, very close to just eliminate myself. People are evil, man. Story 2. People don't want to hear this, but it's true for some. Have you noticed that your relationship has been going really well lately? Your partner seems to be in a good mood all the time, and they seem like they are being extra nice to you. Have you noticed that you two are fighting way less than you used to? Does everything seem perfect? For some cheaters, that is exactly how it plays out. See? They are in a relationship and they are kind of happy, but kind of not. They don't want to leave exactly, but they feel some resentment for missing out on being single. They kind of sort of blame their partner. They might be unhappy about minor perceived issues. They might be super critical of your intimacy life together because they really do want intimacy and they feel you have a monopoly on it. As soon as they start cheating, all of that weight and pressure disappears. They don't feel like they are missing out because they aren't. And hey, it's not like they dislike you. They still care for you. They even feel a little guilty and they act extra nice. And they aren't quite as interested or as demanding when it comes to intimacy because they are getting it somewhere else too. And they are in a great mood because they are getting exactly what they want. They probably have some decent excuse for why they are more busy than usual. You are probably spending a bit less time together, but man, everything is great until you find out. Answer. Have you noticed that your relationship has been going really well lately? Your partner seems to be in a good mood all the time, and they seem like they are being extra nice to you. Have you noticed that you two are fighting way less than you used to? I've heard some people describe this, but without the cheating. A long period, talking months to years, of tension, friction, and confrontation. And then a sudden change. It's not that the problems have been resolved. It's just that the other person stopped caring and has checked out. Story 3. There is a chilliness that wasn't there before. Almost like there's a yes but vibe to things. Impossible for me to notice back then, as I didn't know it was a thing. Also, some girls will get mean when they know they're being shoot and want you to end it. That baffled me as well. May we all find what our hearts are looking for. Answer. Pro tip. It's not just girls who do that last one. My ex-BF was practically begging me to leave him, in hindsight, with how out of nowhere mean he started being to me. When I finally did, he jumped right into the arms of the girl he'd been cheating on me with. Of course, their dynamic only worked with me in the equation, her as the other woman. So now they're broken up, he's heartbroken again, calling me up at every week. Story 4. The only time I've been cheated on was with the lifelong best friend that everyone seemed cool with them sleeping in the same bed together because they're basically siblings, is what her mom said. Even believed her when she said the boxers I found on the floor were mine. Probably didn't believe it, but wanted to since she was my first. I know the post called for something not obvious, so I feel I needed to share my naive jerk story. Story 5. When they tell you about the ones who was hitting on them, but the one that they didn't mention to you about, yeah, they are thinking about leaving you for them, even if it's just for a night. Oh, here's an even better one. When they intentionally start a fight just to get away from you. Yeah, they are with someone else for the night or two or the entire week. Story 6. If they have been cheating the whole time, nothing in behavior will change. It will be the baseline, which is the goal. It's even worse when the person they are cheating with is aware and helps cover up for them. I've noticed cheating partners always seem to shower when they arrive home, like won't even touch you until they showered. They don't like cheating jokes from my experience. Answer, I definitely agree with them not liking cheating jokes from my experience also. They get awkward and just odd whenever any type of joke is made about cheating. It could be a joke about friends cheating, etc. Not even necessarily a joke about them cheating. It was one of the more suspect things I noticed. No issue joking about basically anything else, but any mention of cheating and they give off an almost, whoa, that's not an appropriate thing to joke about vibe. Story 7. They hide their phone because of the conversations they know they shouldn't be having, being emotionally distant with you out of nowhere with no reason or warning. They start random arguments with you about the smallest of things, lying about where they're going and who they're going to be with at specific times. They'll say they aren't talking to anyone anymore, but yet still having inappropriate conversations with said person or other people despite knowing your feelings. Constantly seeking validation from others besides their partner. Answer, yep, 2 things I've personally encountered. Their phone goes from having no password to a password, or the password is randomly changed. Notification previews are turned off or obfuscated to just show new message. Or their phone has a specific notification noise for one person's texts, and they have a Pavlov response to immediately check it and respond. It could be 3 a.m. in bed or 3 p.m. flying in a plane. They have to check it. In both scenarios, there is immediate agitation when they cannot locate their phone or are without cell service Wi-Fi. Not only have I dealt with it, I have also seen it happen around friends with their now exes. Just total meltdowns and attacks when confronted about the change in phone behavior. Story 8. Sudden disappearance of an interest in intimacy. After my ex one night at a rando on a girl's night out, our intimacy life dropped off the face of the earth. She got mean towards me. My every advance was rejected. Soon after, when I began noticing the changes in attitude, the gaslighting started. It's all in your head. Nothing happened. You're so insecure. Don't you trust me? Well, fast forward 2 sexless years. We had broken up a couple weeks prior, and the friend she went out with that night told me what happened. All I could say in the moment was, yeah, I figured that part out almost immediately. And then I found out she'd been having an affair for at least the final 6-7 months of our relationship, though I do suspect it was much longer than that. Story 9. Emotionally detaching. Getting irrationally angry at things they never seem to get slightly upset at before. Weird, strange reasons given for their outbursts. Taking their phone everywhere, spending hours in the bathroom with it, and denying such things. Coming back to the shared home at weird hours late at night, covered in perfume that you don't wear glitter. Blaming you for everything that's gone wrong in the relationship with shoot evidence. Constantly changing the shared history together with details meant to hurt you strongly. I tried to save the marriage because I thought I had to be the one to honor the vows. I got very sick through this, and I know now to never sacrifice your well-being when someone is being excruciatingly shoot with you. Been divorced for a few years now, and am so much happier. Story 10. Moving to another spot to use their phone, yeah? I remember the pattern easily now, but I just didn't even think about it at the time. They would be sitting next to me. The phone goes off with a text notification, yeah? Then they would get up like they're stretching or went to grab a drink, then come back and sit in a spot where their phone would be angled away from me as they texted. I mean, it would happen every time that thing went off, yeah? I just never questioned it because people sit in different spots all the time. Yeah, I only found out because they told me a few years ago after the fact. Like, what the fudge? Story 11. My ex-wife used to write me the text conversations she was having with the guys she was interested in. They were always my friends, to show me how funny they were. Oftentimes they were just normal, mundane convos and were not especially funny, but she would read them to me like he was being hilarious and always say, I love him, when we talked about them. In the way you say you love your friends, but it was every time their name got brought up. I speak in multiples because she basically ran through every man in our friend group trying to get one of them to sleep with her. Story 12. My ex-husband was sleeping with a coworker. It took me seeing that he was spending double on lunch every day to figure it out. He was taking her to lunch every day. He tried to play it off like he was buying lunches for people, and they were paying him back, but he never had cash from them. This was before Venmo, etc. I finally caught him. Dirtbag. Story 13. One time that I somehow oblivious to in denial when I was with my ex, that became totally clear as day. Later down the line, she went out clubbing with her mates one time and the next day never responded to any texts or calls or anything. Totally ghosted me for about 24 hours before getting in touch again. And when she finally got back to me, she just said, sorry, my phone died. It didn't die because when I tried to call her, it rang. At the time, I just went, oh, okay. In hindsight, and knowing how she treated me the rest of the relationship and how much she cheated, I know it's pretty obvious. She hooked up with someone that night and didn't respond either because she was still with him or she was feeling too awkward to talk to me knowing what she had done. It was really, really obvious in hindsight, and I have no idea why I chose to just ignore it at the time. Answer, I experienced something similar, except he went to a party. He was only supposed to go for a few hours to hang for a bit with the birthday boy, then return home. He ended up going out all night, didn't answer my calls or texts, didn't return until the next day. As soon as he got back, he walked straight to the washroom and put his clothes in there to be washed and then jumped in the shower. I suspected he was up to something that night, but ignored my instincts and tried to rationalize it with his dumb excuses. I later found out he did in fact cheat that night. Looking back, it was probably why he threw his clothes in the washing machine right away, tried to hide any evidence. I'm glad we are no longer together anymore. Story 14. Becoming cold and distant suddenly. Hiding phone, always trying to be alone, suddenly trying to break up, going from bragging about you to absolutely trashing you to friends and family, thousands of texts, having inappropriate pictures you've never seen before, secret apps, hidden apps, dating apps. Shall I go on? Story 15. I have been cheated on a few times, and one of the not so obvious signs IMO is that, and this is probably on the early stages of cheating, they do all the little things to please you. Could be buying you food, small gifts, not complaining about you spending time with your friends' recreation activities. It's probably to stop you questioning any unusual activity. Story 16. Dressing better, disappearing and not texting or saying anything, not needing emotional validation or company like they usually do, seemingly preoccupied and less forthcoming about what's going on in their life or day-to-day. Up late with the phone, missing events, caring about style and looking good for once, all of a sudden being at the gym for hours every other day, caring about fitness when they never did, always on their phone, and suddenly becoming very cold and mean and almost disliked but still insisting on sticking around and being together, forgetful of you like they don't remember or care that you're with them if you're traveling together or at an event. It's like you only exist for them to criticize and resent. It was like I'd done something to him out of nowhere, and my sheer existence made him dislike me. Found out later he was cheating and it got his ego up, of course. Story 17. Spotting the lies. My ex had a massive tell of over-explaining when she lied. I didn't fully pick up on it at the time, but I started noticing a sudden change in her explanations of where she'd been without being prompted or asked. She'd been rehearsing her cover stories and giving me the full bullshit reasons why she was late. So as soon as she got home, I get the cover story straight away. It was as if she needed to get the lying part over with quickly, like it was uncomfortable, so she'd get it over with as soon as she saw me. I did notice it, but I wasn't expecting anything like this, so I didn't click that she was lying at first. That was the sign, though. Unprompted and oftentimes intricate explanations of where she'd been and why she was late. Story 18. My ex would never let me touch her phone. If mine wasn't to hand and I needed to look something up, she had to do it. I couldn't even look at her phone without her accusing me of looking for something. I wasn't interested in what was on there. And if I told her to use her own phone, she'd always ask, "What are you hiding from me?" Literally nothing. But she was always so suspicious that there was something incriminating on my phone. Story 19. Lack of interest in you. Long pauses between texts when you aren't together, but when you are together, they always looking at their phone. They often use sleeping as an excuse why they haven't texted back, like I passed out early last night. I slept in really late. I was taking a nap. If you ask them about their behavior, they get upset with you and try to blame things on you. Story 20. A huge sign for me was when he stopped reaching for me in his sleep. Before, if I rolled over or pulled away to adjust, he'd stay cuddling me even if he was asleep. I immediately noticed the first night he just stayed on his side of the bed. He had already subconsciously disconnected from me. Later found out he was cheating with multiple women. Story 21. Don't know if this counts when she says dating more than one person is fine. She told me another guy liked her, but she told him she's seeing me at the moment. Saw the friend zone signals afterward and dipped so she won't have to find an excuse for dating the other guy. Sometimes it's better to walk away before the deed is done to you if you can foresee it. Story 22. Lack of trust security. If they've cheated, they're already lying. If they're lying, there will be a certain vigilance about what you say and think. That's a direct result of their insecurity, fear of the truth being found. I'm creepily aware of very subtle shifts in people's body language because of childhood trauma that makes me attuned to those kinds of things. That insecurity will show itself in everyday interactions. Another trick is that when people lie, they stop or dramatically reduce the use of pronouns in their stories. They will start to be more critical of you and your behavior to throw you off, because on some level they know you're going to notice that something has shifted and they want you to suspect you're the problem, not them. Story 23. A sudden glow-up that never gets discussed. Working out really hard, changing clothes and hair, makeup style overhaul, etc. When you're in a committed relationship, you talk about these kinds of shifts. Someone feels fat, they dislike their hair, they want to change a wardrobe. Those are regular couples conversations. Somebody making these changes suddenly and without any communication suggests they've found somebody new and exciting to impress. Story 24. Started complimenting me on things he didn't seem to notice before. How white my teeth are, how good I smell, how young I look. Like he was seeing me for the first time. It was comparison. The woman he was cheating with didn't take great care of herself. I thought it was good until I found out. Story 25. Seems like it's really hard to notice anything. As it happens, my uncle was cheating my aunt for most of their 30-year marriage, and no one ever suspected anything. He is the sweetest, most humble man that I know, but as it appears, he likes to F around. Story 26. What sucks most is when there are no signs because there is no change, because they were at no point actually loyal to you. Then when they try to be because you found out, they turn into the most unbearable human being and expect you to idolize them for their great sacrifice, lol. Story 27. Lack of detail unless you ask. I've been cheated on and nothing was all that obvious until I read this post and thought about it. There were a lot of instances where I felt like I would ask for details and it felt off. Usually when you're dating someone and they're off doing something, they'll tell you all about it when you check in. But sometimes it felt like I was kind of prying for basic conversational information. I'd get the cover story off the bat, but the details were nuanced. Story 28. Them wanting to keep you on a short leash, but also calling you controlling if you ask any questions about where they were last night whenever and uncharacteristically didn't answer call or text. Also, them accusing you of cheating and saying cheaters are the worst out of nowhere. So much projection. Story 29. New underwear and more downstairs grooming than was previously done. My ex went from once a month grooming, which I was fine with, I like a trimmed bush, to shaving smooth before a work night out. The panties went from cute sporty ones with coverage, to much smaller ones with less coverage, to lacy thong ones over the course of a few months, to matching bras and panties. I didn't question it because I was happier having more time to watch old concerts with a bottle of whiskey in my hand at home. Story 30. This is a non-answer, but worth noting. Sometimes it's just not obvious. Sometimes the person is extremely adept at covering their tracks and also has advantages, like being at a distance or working an alternate shift, etc. on their side. These types of threads can help identify oddities, but sometimes you truly won't know until it becomes obvious or you're told. Story 31. Mine kept telling me he was going for walks with a friend. I didn't think much of it because it was when the pandemic rules were lifting in our city. People were reconnecting with friends and family outside their bubble. Dumped me out of the blue and I ran into them a few weeks later at one of our favorite date spots. LOLs? Story 32. In college, going over to a friend's place, I'm there for 10 minutes and I get the "when are you coming home?" text. Friend and I thought she was just being really clingy. Turns out she was gauging how long I would be gone, so she knew how much time she had to spend with her other guy. Story 33. My wife was pretty negative about anything I said. If I said it was 12, there was a huff and no, it's 13. Anything I would say to her in normal tones, I was biting her head off. One day it seemed like she was getting more texts than normal. I confronted her. She looked like a deer in the headlights. She denied. I pressed her. It all came out. 3 weeks later, she's living with him, and we filed for divorce. Story 34. My ex was so loving, caring, and did everything for me and my friends and family, but some of his stories didn't line up. They didn't make sense. I'm an empath, so my intuition gut was screaming at me that something was off. For 6 months, I asked him about this one particular woman that I had a feeling about. He gaslit me every time I brought it up, calling me crazy. 6 months later, I discovered the truth. He was seeing her. If something feels off and you're going mental, time to start trusting your gut. Story 35. Wearing makeup, dressing while wearing perfume more often, more excited about going to work, coming home later from work, and often in a really good mood, as opposed to being tired or just weary. Spending far more time on her phone, strolling in and out of the room. Phone was now on silent, and when it went off, vibrate. She would always make sure the angle of her phone was where I couldn't read it and up to her face. Another one is obvious, but not to everyone. Act as if you know something and see how they react. Due to the examples above, I had a strong sense that something was up. I simply told her about these changes, then continued as though I knew more but wasn't going to disclose it. She was all a fluster, her breathing heavier and pulse was up. She kept asking me, "What am I talking about?" in a panicking manner. I left it there and simply said to her, "When you're ready to talk, I'll talk." That was it. Story 36. I know, I saw my, at the time, recent ex like a month after she broke up with me. We were cordial. It ended because we weren't fitting anymore. I saw her at an event and we hung out. I thought it was all fine. I approached her while she was on a video call with someone. She hung up quickly and put the phone away. I asked who she was talking to. She said the name of someone she'd worked with over the summer. I slid to the side, mouth pinched. I caught a weird vibe but brushed it off. 2 months later, 3 months post-breakup, she came clean that she had been cheating on me for at least 2 months before breaking up with me. That's who she had been calling with when I saw her after the breakup. She decided to come clean and tell me because they were going official, and she didn't want me to find out the details from somewhere else. It took a long time to see that narcissism for what it was. Anyway, I remember that ping in my gut when she put the phone down, and I wonder if it would have made a difference at all if I'd inquired further at the time. Probably not. Story 37. Noticed my partner spending an hour in the bathroom at a time, asking me and the kids if we needed to use it beforehand and getting mad if we interrupted. Thought it was the classic dude spending too long pooping in the bathroom deal. He was cheating and wanted privacy and uninterrupted sexting time. My other ex stopped kissing me, just a peck, but not passionately. Then I saw him making out with my best friend in the parking lot outside our apartment while I was inside watching her kids. Story 38. Any innocent interactions with someone the same gender as your partner, even colleagues or longtime friends, becomes an issue. My ex and I were out shopping when I got a call that my coworker had been in a car accident. She's okay, just a little banged up, and we needed emergency coverage at the store. My ex dropped me off and said he'd pick me up at 7. 6:30 rolled around, and we were absolutely slammed, so my male coworker offered to drive me home if I could stay until we closed at 9 and he'd drive me home after. I called my ex and he got huffy, then hung up on me. We ended up leaving a little after 9:30, normal for us, and I got home at 9:45. My ex was already asleep, but I woke him up accidentally around 10 while gathering stuff to shower. He saw the time, blew up, and asked if we had fudge in his car before he drove me home. I don't have any proof that he cheated, but he did start seeing a girl pretty soon after. Story 39. Ryan, does she keep her phone locked around you, Michael? Does she watch how much she drinks around you, Michael? Aside to camera. Does she leave the room when she takes phone calls? Does she keep perfume in her purse? Does she shower before intimacy? Does she shower after intimacy? Does she, Michael? Yeah, she does all that, Ryan. Sorry, dude. Story 40. I helped my kid's mom through school. Like the stray, we both worked in a factory. We were just hooking up, and she got prego. So I told her I'd grow up and I'll move in with her. She stayed at home. I helped her through school, and she got a bachelor's in microbiology. And she was always grateful and always told me how lucky she was. And after she got her bachelor's, she went to Germany with a few friends, cheated, and when she came back, I don't know at the time, all it was how never did anything for her and how I was never there. And now I'm just now getting back on my feet, and she's married and has our kids. Note, I still get to see my boys whenever I want, and she's not take down me in child support. And silver lining is her husband is an electrical engineer, and they make really good money, which puts my kids into private school. Still hella bitter about it, but try not to let it show when I come around. Story 41. It's always the person they talk about. I don't really mind if people go, but it's happened 4 times and it always looks exactly the same. A lot of people have like 2 or 3 things going for them. So adding a whole person they talk about more than their family is a flaming red flag. Story 42. The only time I've ever been totally blindsided was years ago when I was dating this woman. We'd been together about 3 or 4 months, had strong chemistry, and saw each other 3 to 5 times a week. It was that honeymoon phase where you can't get enough of each other. One of her best friends was someone I already knew through a separate circle. That's actually how we met, at this friend's birthday. Because things were still new, we agreed not to announce that we were dating just yet. She grew up about half an hour away and would go home every second weekend to visit her mom and her disabled brother. On those weekends, we didn't talk much, just the occasional message or photo. Then one afternoon, our mutual friend messaged me and asked if something was going on between us. Since we'd been seeing each other for months, I told her the truth. She immediately said no, and told me she had suspected something was off because my girlfriend had been acting evasive whenever she asked. That's when everything came out. I wasn't her boyfriend. I was the side piece. The part about her mom and brother was true, but they didn't live half an hour away. They actually lived nearby, and every second weekend, she wasn't visiting her family. She was going home to her real boyfriend. Yeah, that one stung for a while. Story 43. This is obvious, but wasn't to me, who had been married 23 to an honest and religious family man. It was when he came back from Thailand with gonorrhea. The doctor had to talk to me in private as well, so that I could be treated. I asked if there was any way to get it without intercourse, and he said no. I used the internet, which was still new, to search, and it said there was a very slim chance that it could live for a minute or two, but needed a warm, moist culture to survive. My ex's explanation was his colleague convinced him to get a massage, and the masseuse, I refused to use massage therapist, touched his male body part with her hands and must have spread it from another customer. I wanted to believe him so bad that I did, but that was the beginning. Unfortunately, it was those early morning phone calls that my teen daughter overheard one morning. And the way he was talking, my daughter assumed he was on the phone to me, but she didn't understand why I would be out of the house so early and discovered I was still in bed. It took her months, but her sister convinced her she needed to tell me. Of course, he denied it, and I again, being crazily dependent upon him, was trying not to believe what my daughter told me. But from that time forward, I monitored everything, including the cell phone bill, which in that day listed all the calls. I surprised, picked him up up from the airport one day when he told me it would be too late for me to pick him up and he would have Tom from work pick him up. That is when I saw her there, apparently there to pick him up. The next time he was out of town, I paid her a visit and learned she was waiting for us to get a divorce because then he was going to marry her. Lol. I was determined not to get a divorce, and we went to an excellent male counselor for a couple of years, but he couldn't let go of his addiction, and I finally divorced him after a 27-year-old marriage. The other woman had already given up on him when she saw I wasn't going to divorce him, and she married someone else, so he just moved on to others. This is the short version of this, and if you made it this far, I am sorry. Story 44. Honestly, it's your own behavior that will be most indicative of whether your partner is cheating. As strange as that sounds, do you find yourself needing to ask many questions in order to get the full scope of details because they are never forthcoming? Do you get anxious when they don't answer their phone or return your calls after hours or overnight? When they go out, do you get nervous? Does their phone seem to die often, leading you to be a worrisome mess? Do you feel like when you are out of their sight, you are out of their mind? A real partner will be assuring, honest, and genuinely hurt if they made you feel any of these types of ways. If you bring these concerns up to them and they gaslight you, or even worse, become super hostile, there's something going on. Story 45. When you have given your partner no reason to question or even suspect that you are being unfaithful, but all of the sudden they start treating you like you've got something going on with someone else behind their back, some sort of rationalization or justification for what they are currently doing to you. Story 46. Just coldness in general. It's like you're taking a shower and it's nice and warm, then all of a sudden it's cold. You know someone else is using the hot water, starting fights over nothing as soon as she walks in the door because she's trying to create a reason to be detached. But she was already detached. She just wants to justify it in your mind. Gosh, she came home so mad that I was watching ESPN that we had a huge fight and I ended up sleeping on the couch. I'll tell you one thing, no cheater will ever get one over on me again. Married women only because I would rather know she's rotten than get fooled by a wolf in sheep's fur. Story 47. Hiding their phone from you, locking it as soon as you walk in the room. You can't know their phone or PC password, but they can know yours, locking their computer when they briefly leave the room, laying in bed all day with their phone with the door closed and asking to be left alone. I just want to relax. The list goes on. So many red flags that I ignored. Then one day I was just done and left. He had cheated on me multiple times over the years, but I was very insecure and had no self-worth. Never doing that to myself again. Story 48. Never posted Muse on a social media because he worried about my safety. Didn't want weirdos finding me BC. It was an issue in the past. IDK, but then he cheated and it all made sense. She found me anyways on social media to tell me so clearly he failed to hide me. And his first worry was, how'd she find you? Yeah, that's the problem here. Story 49. I was hanging around a fire pit with my ex-wife, her best friend, and a couple of my friends. Somehow cheating got brought up, and her friend threw the question out to me. What would I do if I found out she was having an affair? I rolled my eyes and said she'd never do that. My friends pressed me, and I blurted out that I would fudge all her friends and cousins. We laughed and moved on. Sure enough, she was having an affair. Story 50. 1. Lots of time spent with a particular person. Suddenly, sometimes you are aware of it, sometimes it is discovered and blown off like it is nothing. 2. Suddenly there are a lot of mentionings of a specific person out of seemingly nowhere and for no particular reason. Sorry? This one is the real kicker, and you won't even know until later. They suddenly get very critical of you and even get insistent that maybe you are cheating on them. Speaking from experience? Absolutely. Are there other things to add to this list? Absolutely. Why didn't I add them? It's been a long time, and I just don't remember. Story 51. Using loving language but withholds loving gestures. They say they love you but won't initiate kissing and are colder in response to your touch. My entire almost 10-year relationship, my partner always smiled and kissed me when I walked behind her and softly touched her butt. Then one day I do it and she whirled on me and said she didn't like me objectifying her. Which, fair point. But at any point in 10 fudge years, you think that would have come up before they started screwing someone else. Story 52. Here's what happened with me. Diet changed. He suddenly stopped eating ice cream at night, big habit, and drinking Diet Red Bull. He disliked Diet Red Bull for 15 years, started to carpool with friends. He took the car seats out of his car to hook up with his affair partner. All of a sudden, getting home from work late, suddenly was talking about moving somewhere he has always disliked. Story 53. They start acting weird around your close friends, avoiding eye contact, cutting conversations short when they used to be long talks, avoiding you altogether. Happened to me 2x with my friends' husbands. Suddenly they can't make eye contact with me. I notice them on the phone in the car, away from their wife. That is just the weirdest experience, like, you are not my husband. Story 54. Suddenly getting up at 12 a.m. because he was training for a tow truck job. He even borrowed my car. Turns out he had driven about an hour away to meet my friends so they could do it in the back of my car, in a parking lot. He had borrowed my phone before that, which made no sense, and it turned out my friend had texted me to ask if it was okay to smash my ex. We weren't broken up, but he got to it before I even knew about it and gave her the go-ahead. Yeah. Oh, and I got HPV from him. Didn't find out until later, but now I am clean and cancer-free. Get your paps, ladies. Leap suck. Story 55. Weird laundry habits, for example. Repeatedly trying to sneak stuff into a load, or quickly putting one outfit into a load right when they get home. Different perfume or cologne. New grooming habits. Suddenly much more interested in appearance than usual. Showering right when they get home, unless that's normal for them. Working lots of extra overtime or taking a lot of work trips. Hiding phone use. Suddenly using apps like Snapchat or Signal. Going to another room to text. New moves during intimacy. No white ring on the naked ring finger, i.e., looks like they have their ring off a lot. Some of these might not be enough to make me suspicious on their own, but if I would watch carefully if I noticed more than 2 to 3 of these. Story 56. Honestly, the signs aren't always obvious at first. It's the little shifts you notice only after you've been through it. They stop sharing their day with you, get defensive over small questions, or avoid intimacy in subtle ways. You might notice them suddenly hyper-focused on how they look or their social media, or they stop making future plans with you. It's never one thing, it's the pattern over time that hits you, and honestly, your gut usually knows before your brain does. Story 57. My wife went from talking about what a loser this guy at work was to, well, he's got issues, but I feel bad for him. He just hasn't had a chance at life. Maybe he can join your band. He sings at work and he's pretty good? No, he's still a loser with no direction in life, and you're now a lying cheater who I've lost all trust and respect for. I confronted her before I had evidence, and she flatly denied it and made me feel like I was a total jerk for questioning her loyalty. Then I found evidence, notebook with handwritten notes between the two, and I was a jerk for going through her stuff. Whatever. Story 58. Having phone issues anytime we were apart, but had no issue being constantly on the phone while together. Set this up from the beginning so I wouldn't be suspicious when he wouldn't answer my texts or calls, or even being able to see each other's location. Hell, there was technical issues when trying to even follow each other on our Apple Watches. Story 59. Growing up, I had a group of friends we were very close. It was 5 of us. One of them had an older sister, which was my high school sweetheart for about 4 years. We did everything from sunup to sundown together. Everyone knew about us. We ended up following each other to college, the whole 9. Eventually, we end up back home around everyone we grew up around. I catch some charges that land me in prison for a year and some change. She started fudge my best friend not long after I went away, which I heard from my little sister. Apparently, they would come into functions together, leave together. She would drive his car. Anything you could think of. Everyone around couldn't help to think that she was acting in a way that she would act with me. But this is the part around the time we moved back from college, a few months before I ended up in prison. We were on a break for other reasons. Also, her mother had some mental issues, still to this day, to where she could not keep up with the bills for their home. So they moved into one of our other close friends' home, which just so happened to be the friend she fudged when I went to prison. So yay, didn't see that coming, but I wasn't really surprised once it all came out, lol. Story 60. Reading over this discussion, I conclude that I am quite glad to be part of an older generation where people do not demand the right to know where you are at all times and to read all of your conversations. A lot of these alleged signs of cheating are things everyone does, but that people are only noticing because of a discovered affair of frankly paranoia. Story 61. Well, there were the accusations against me. Next was leaving late at night just to do some work. Mind you, she didn't have a job. The real kicker was the time we were having intimacy and I went, that's new. Oh shoot, she's cheating on me. Found the pictures of her and him a few weeks later. She told me it's not what I think. It was what I think. I hope she finds happiness someday. I have given up on relationships. I will love my children and live in glorious solitude. Story 62. 90 of the time, the spouse that starts accusing their spouse of cheating is either currently cheating, recently cheated, or if your woman has bruises on her jerk back, her thighs or wrist, and biceps, and can't explain them, or jokes that she is just clumsy, Don't believe it. That batch is funding around. I stupidly believed that bullshit, and I never would have thought until I honed in specific searches, come to find out my little miss innocent girlfriend was a aspiring porn star. Story 63. Emotional distance, lack of humor, intimacy energy goes. Gaslighting you when you try to speak about how you feel. Posting things about themselves on social media, all without you ever in it. Being more paranoid than usual. Getting funny about where you are and at what times, scared of being caught, etc. Story 64. Here are the signs. Their phone is always with them, no matter what. My ex's GF literally slept with her phone clutched to her chest or underneath her. How dumb am I asked, and the simple response was, I always fall asleep with my phone, and I accepted it. SMH, there is a completely different actions in communication, intimacy, and everyday routines. You become lost and wonder what is going on. You ask, and they will outline things you can do better. Then you get the I need to find myself talk, and you comply. SMH, your gut tells you, but you live in denial. You talk yourself out of it all the time. That gut feeling is a natural instinct. Trust it. There are plenty more, but I will keep it with my top 3. Been cheated on by 3 girlfriends, and these remain consistent. Just broke up from a 9-year relationship last week due to cheating. I guess I'm getting used to it and remain dumb. Story 65. My BF was suddenly never on the phone in front of me anymore. Like, at the end of the night, we'd be sitting up in bed beside each other. I'd be on my phone just scrolling YouTube or DMing friends silly memes on Insta, and he'd be sitting back against the headboard, either noticeably side-eyeing what I was doing on my phone or pretending to watch TV. He disliked TV, actually never tuned into it. It was like he was pretending to watch, just waiting for me to fall asleep or And what's funny is my women's intuition red flag was telling me he probably had started consuming women-hating alpha male manosphere content. Otherwise, why would he be so nervous to scroll through normal stuff in front of me like I do in front of him? How naive. It wasn't until we broke up for other reasons that he eventually came clean that he'd been cheating on me pretty much the entire relationship. He wasn't afraid to be on his phone because of the content he consumed. He was probs afraid of a MSG from one of his hoes popping up on screen, or even worse, probably didn't even know how to pretend to be busy on his phone because all he uses it for, in hindsight, was to watch adult content pursue cheating. Story 66. My ex would hold his phone in his breast pocket at all times, usually never had it accessible. And this was before he got a smartphone. It was a piece of shoot, but still was able to take photos. He finally left it out one night, didn't need a passcode for it, and found he was sending photos of him in his underwear to an old fellow high school classmate behind my back. Also, the photos weren't very impressive. Bye-bye. Story 67. When they have to emphasize about a certain friend, even when you did not ask anything about them, let alone be suspicious. Case in point, my ex would say things like, oh, he has met my parents before and they know about him. I have never met her parents to begin with. Or, oh, he is married and helping me with something. When she had to bail out of our date midway at 9 p.m. Turns out she was seeing him behind my back and was an adulterer with the other guy. Never been in a relationship ever since because of this emotional trauma. Story 68. I work away, and during one particularly long absence, in the span of about 6 weeks, my ex lost about 40 pounds, completely changed her personality, taste in music, hairstyle, clothes, hobbies, and interest in anything I was doing. I just assumed it was some sort of midlife thing. It wasn't. It was just the beginning of 3 years of lies, guilt, pain, heartbreak, and destruction of lives. Story 69. Working late, working out of town, calling back later, instead of answering the phone, keeping phone locked, phone on silent and no vibration, notifications, new moves during intimacy, new clothes or slightly different look for random long hair in the car. Story 70. Lies that he is feeding his dying mother and forgetting that he gave me access to her baby cam at nursing home and missed having lunch with me and our daughter, so he could instead talk to his mistress on the phone. While having lunch and checking baby cam, and his mother is completely alone. I ask him how come he isn't in the room with her by text, and he quickly joins her in the room. There were tons of other hints like constantly going to the grocery store and forgetting to buy what he was there for. Story 71. They absolutely positively love you in the relationship. Why would you even question that? That's so weird. Look, they just have a new outlook on life. They're going to find themselves, but no, seriously, how can you even think they're not happy in this relationship? That's pretty insulting. Wow. They just never felt like they got to be independent. They just need some space to figure out who they are. Oh my God, you're smothering them with questions. They just can't talk right now, and to be honest, you're really being very weird about it all, and that's not very attractive. Can you not just respect their wishes and back the fudge off? Can't a person just want to be alone for a second? Ugh. They need to go out with friends tonight because of how you are reacting. You just aren't being supportive, even though you absolutely have nothing to worry about. In fact, it's almost like you may be up to something with how odd you're being about this. That's it, they can't take it anymore. They need a divorce and to suddenly move in with a coworker that miraculously just happened to be there for them when you got all weird about them just wanting to, be free and YOLO at it all. Please pack your things. Nothing was happening. It was you that ruined it. By the way, they are getting remarried as soon as the ink on the divorce is dry, but that had nothing to do with why your relationship with them failed, you weirdo. Story 72. Does she keep her phone locked around you? Does she watch how much she drinks around you? Does she leave the room when she takes phone calls? Does she keep perfume in her purse? Does she shower before intimacy? Does she shower after intimacy? Does she... Story 73. Couple that I missed while I was putting food on the table for all of us. Sudden need to be at work more. She wouldn't volunteer to eat a lobster dinner, but was suddenly spending extra time at school because she needed to catch up on grading. All of a sudden, a need to take Boku shoot with the door closed for 10 minutes at a time, phone in hand. I was clueless enough that I asked, "Hey, are you having stomach issues? You seem to spend lots of time in the bathroom lately." As others have said, change in makeup and style. Apparently, he liked a slightly different look. Sudden need to split the pair and have one person do things with our daughter while the other did laundry or some other menial task. A change when we used to surprise each other at work for lunch or right after her school ended. Teacher, well, they've tightened the campus up a lot and don't like people coming by. Story 74. We planned vacations. He would say he was going to join us later, and he never came. Just me and my daughter being told to have a good time, and he had too much work to join us. Now that I know the timelines of his affairs, it all makes sense. I never suspected. I brought gifts home to him. How stupid. Story 75. My ex would randomly start caring about his hygiene and would buy new clothing. After a few months, when we became serious, he really stopped keeping himself up. Not shaving regularly, not having haircuts, not brushing his teeth every day. Disgusted me so much. Showering only once a week, not manscaping for months, growing a huge gross bush, and wearing the same work clothes every single day. I noticed one day that he had gotten a really nice haircut and was already suspicious because he'd only really been getting haircuts if we were going on a trip or to a nice function. We were intimate that day, and noticed that his giant bush was nice and trimmed. Around that same time, he started getting Stitch Fix deliveries and actually changing his clothes regularly. When I asked about his abrupt change in habits, he told me that he was feeling less depressed. I did notice that he was unusually happy and nice to me. Come to find out, by going through his old phone for something completely unrelated 3 years later, I made the incidental finding. I had just had our baby a few months before finding out about his months-long affair, and we were slated to be married less than a month later. Hawaii shut down because of COVID, so it saved me the embarrassing conversations with everyone about why we were canceling the wedding. He had a totally separate life I had no clue about. He had gotten on Tinder and met someone who lived 3 hours away in an area he would frequently travel to for work. Looking back, it makes perfect sense that his new job suddenly required him to be gone every other weekend for a while. He didn't go with me to Colorado for Thanksgiving that year, and I was so devastated when he said he had to stay behind because of work. He was a master at lying and hiding this from both of us. By looking at his messages and calls with her, I noticed a pattern. He typically stopped talking to her at a certain time of day, which was when he'd usually get home. His excuse to her was always that he was exhausted from work. He'd sometimes call her late at night while I slept, and he played on the PlayStation. He took really long trips to the bathroom also. I assumed to text her when I was around. So there's a lesson straight out of the Maestro's book. Story 76. A guy I dated casually panicked over his hair getting a little wet and messy in the shower. I thought he was vain. Some people are weird about their hair, but when I realized he was cheating, I got it. Other signs that I was the other woman were, he would not give me his phone number. He only wanted to see me at my place and made stupid excuses why we couldn't meet at his place. Like he suddenly sold his house and moved out of town. I'd found out there was never a listing of his house that matched his description. He was super secretive about his job. I was just new on the dating market, so I was naive. And since I was just hooking up, I also didn't really care about his doll or whereabouts. That's how he got away with it first. Another sign of chatting is when men look for older women on dating apps. So their GF single friends who are dating their own, she would not see them if they are on dating apps too. I found out this is very common. Story 77. In my experience, a telltale sign of a cheater is someone who has an aversion to intimacy, being vulnerable, and talking about any sensitive or romantic topics. Everything is enough with the sappy shoot already, when in reality they crave it more than anyone, but are incapable of sitting through it out of fear of failure and disappointment. In my own relationship, the tell was making mention of the third party constantly, relating everything back to their conversations and interests, trying to get me to cut my hair like them, dress like them, etc. It was gut-wrenching. I spiraled into addiction for 5 years after that. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. Story 78. They start wanting intimacy more often. The addition of a novel partnership can cause increased libido at home. Some people, if they believe you're fully snowed, or simply themselves don't care, may even be more emotionally intimate with you at home as well. Very counterintuitive. Story 79. Men, they get very possessive over their phone, taking it to the bathroom instead of leaving it on the table, flipping it over so the screen is face down, suddenly getting a new interest or new opinions or new likes, and there is zero idea how or where it came from. Justifying other men's cheating if the topic comes up when they used to disapprove or never really had opinions on it before. Being overly romantic out of nowhere, guilty conscience. Story 80. I had a patient once catch her husband by looking at his Apple Watch data, unexplained increase in heart rate in the exact times he would be staying late at work or when the home camera would suddenly be offline. He wasn't going to the gym. She managed to use this data to catch him in the act. Story 81. I tried to come up with some examples, but in my case it was all super obvious. I just didn't want to believe it. I realized this isn't the case with everyone. Some people will go to near impossible lengths to hide things and keep their normal lives the same. That just isn't the case for me. Story 82. He never invited me to go with him to an out-of-town conference, not even once, and we've been married for almost 20. Other people took their wife and kids along with them on occasion. Not him. We would cramp his style and interfere with his secret life. Story 83. Looking for signs that someone is actively cheating on you is a lot less useful than looking for signs that someone would be willing to cheat in the future. Because if you can identify who's likely to cheat in the future, you don't have to waste time waiting for them to actually cheat on you. To do the latter, notice stories in the news or in TV or movies that involve cheating and bring them up with your partner. Do you think X really ended up happier after cheating on Y and dumping Y to be with Z? Discuss and see whether you're in agreement. People who think cheating leads to happiness are obviously more likely to cheat. Story 84. Taking a shower the minute they get home, but there's no actual reason to do so. My partner takes a shower when he gets home from work because he gets dirty at work, and that's completely fine. But if he were to go out with friends and go right to the shower after returning home, I'm suspicious. Story 85. Having their notifications turned off on Messenger, Snap, Insta. I sent my boyfriend a meme through Messenger once in the same room, and it never came across his Messenger. I checked to make sure it did, and it said delivered. So I asked him if he got it, and he said, oh yeah, it's right here. But that notification never went across his screen. I tested it out again over the next week and realized they were 100 turned off. Story 86. A sudden uptick in intimacy interest without explanation. IDK, I'm just horny, unless they're a 13-year-old boy. It's very rare that sudden intimacy interest isn't coming from someone else. It could be they're just getting turned on, looking at the new coworker, but there's probably something more if you're reaping the benefits. Story 87. When their frequency of text to you decreases, but they appear to be on their phone the same amount or more than before when you're with them, especially if they say they didn't respond because they were really busy or because they got distracted. People have tough weeks and whatnot. But if I've been dating you for a couple years and I know your frequency of texts even during a busy day, a sudden shift in frequency is pretty noticeable and often implies something in their mind has changed about you. Story 88. With my ex, and I didn't put this together until years after we were separated, and the truth came out, there were 3 things that stand out. Changing how often she wore makeup to make herself feel better about herself, unfounded accusations I was cheating, restaurant manager that couldn't give an exact time of getting off work, and small changes in what she said, mostly from I love you to I love our life together. Story 89. getting defensive over something so innocuous. I remember one time when my sister's car wasn't working right, we would borrow my dad's. One time he told me he was going out for groceries and I told him, okay, but to hurry back BC, my sister and I were wanting to go to the gym and her car still wasn't fixed. He suddenly got mad and told me he was going to come back whenever he felt like it. Little did he know I had logged into his Google account and tracked his location and got into my sister's barely working car and caught him with who he was cheating on. Mans looked like he had seen the devil incarnate when we came up to his car. Story 90. I go for the two-stage approach, gut punch a deer in headlights. As soon as something feels off, and you can tell there is a cover story, lie back to them that you know everything. I've been through your phone and seen everything. Be vague. They will crumble, and at a minimum confess to cheating, laugh and tell them you lied. Story 91. One day I came home from work early and was surprised to see my son's dad home at the same time. He was freshly showered, shaved, and in his going-out clothes with a hat instead of his more tattered work clothes. When we had first started talking, he left for a music festival and notably shaved his entire freaking nether region before going. Way later on, I wound up going through his phone and seeing him on Snap, trying to find girls to hook up with at the music festival he went to that weekend. I was already pregnant by the time he left for that festival, and we were supposed to take the test to find out before he left. After my son was born, he came home and straight up smelled like intimacy. After we split, I wound up getting prophylactic antibiotics for every STD under the sun. In hindsight, I guess these are all pretty fudge obvious. I guess the less obvious signs were the never-ending negging and complete erosion of my sense of self. Story 92. I have not been through it that I know of. I can speak to signs that someone is betraying you. In my experience, they tend to overspend.